welcome to another very special edition of the Geeks Who Like Sports Leaderboard interviews. As always, I'm Ray Carcello in beautiful Los Angeles, California. Joined by my best friend in the entire world over in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Lee Elias. And today, our very special guest is from New Jersey, my original stomping grounds. I've known him for a very long time from our ESPN days. And of course, he's also the host of two of his own podcasts, Sports with Friends and The Hall of Justice, both of which you can listen to anytime on iTunes. And of course, he also has his own Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Seth Everett. So it's very fitting that we have the host of that, Seth Everett. Seth, how's it going, buddy?
That is an energetic introduction. Wow.
I've got coffee.
My energy
today,
level
so.
is, I don't even know if I can get my energy level up that high. Wow. This is a lot to live
You
up
better.
to.
This is going to be a short episode, Seth. I'm
Yeah,
not
seriously.
seriously.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, no, we appreciate.
Hold on, let me do it for Carcello. Thanks for having me.
we really appreciate you coming on, Seth. We know it's obviously
pleasure.
It's opening day it's opening weekend for baseball, and then of course you are one of the premier baseball experts. You worked for the Mariners, the Mets. Again, we met at ESPN. Obviously, we used to talk a lot about baseball as well, a lot of geek stuff, which we'll get into later. A lot of comic book stuff. But yeah,
Chad Dukes at 106.7 The Fan. He only wants to have me on to talk superhero stuff. But so he'll literally be like, "Can I ask you 3 Nationals questions to pay the bills?"
Yeah.
Gets him out of the way, and then he goes right into the fun stuff.
You see, that's why we created this show, because this is the perfect balance of both, depending on the week. In fact, I was impressed that we got through the entire pandemic with no sports, with sports stuff every week. And now this week we have so much.
There's plenty of sports talk. There's the sports updates have been barren.
Yeah, that's fair.
Sports updates have been really rough.
Yes, no, for sure. So it's why we're so thankful that baseball's back. Opening weekend, I actually have. For those of you who know, of course, we're recording this a little ahead of time. This is Sunday, July 26th. Yes, that's looking at my calendar now. But yes, yeah. Forgot what day it was.
Yeah, it's
March
July
95th.
Yeah. Well, it's weird. Yeah. We actually briefly talked about this before the show. Is that none of us are used to the fact that now is opening weekend for baseball. You know, like we actually had scheduled Seth to come on earlier, but we all realized very last minute. It's like, oh wait, today is opening day, July 23rd. Seth, I mean, the first question, obviously, buddy, is what do you think of how baseball's handled the pandemic and how the opening weekend has gone thus far?
Well, the plan is very hodgepodge, in my opinion. You know, I didn't like this idea from the start. I like the bubble sports. I like the idea that if you can isolate, it's really a good idea. My favorite job, because baseball has my second favorite job that I want for the next month, but my favorite job is I want to answer the phone for the NBA snitch line. I want to be there. I want to stand by with my phone, and I want to answer it like Adam West. And I want to, yes, Commissioner. LeBron's where? He's doing what? Robin, we have to go. And I want to go there, and I just want to hear all the guys snitching on each other. I think that would be a blast. And then I want to go to the baseball stadiums, and I want to be in charge of getting all the foul balls. I want that job. That would be a blast. Could you imagine just running around the ballpark, getting all the foul balls, and you'd be in great shape. You'd see a ton of baseball, and you'd be sunburned.
So Seth, I'm going to do the first geek question now because I have to ask this. So using your metaphor of Batman and Robin, the question comes now is, who are you walking up the side of the building with, holding the rope? Who's your Robin, and who comes out the window that's the celebrity to make a very bad joke?
Oh, that's a great question.
This is Geeks Who Like Sports, bud. Only the best for you.
If I was walking up Robin would be Burt Ward. I mean, there's no question.
Fair enough.
Robin would be Burt Ward. But if someone was to just poke their head out and just say hello, can it be David Hasselhoff?
I mean, listen,
David Hasselhoff in the black leather jacket with the wristwatch, and I could talk to Kit.
I mean, if the Adam West Batman was in the 80s, that definitely would have happened.
Amazing.
Listen,
I love the comic book when the Batman series met the Wonder Woman series.
Yes.
That was so much fun. I had a blast with that.
Seth, I was going to say that we don't typically get perfect answers on this show, but that was just pretty close.
That's pretty good.
Perfect. I mean, yeah.
I actually have that comic book right here, by the way.
Nice. Oh, if we're going to do show and tell.
Oh, boy. No. This is big. This is big because this show is made for moments like this. You can't do this normally. Look at that. Whoa.
Wow.
That's the Hoff.
That's the Hoff.
That's
That was
the
at
Hoff.
the 2002 World Series. That was game 2,
Wait,
I believe.
can you put that up again? Tell me that doesn't look like David Hasselhoff wearing a mask of David Hasselhoff.
Yeah. It's probably just the light, but yes.
Wear your mask. Wear your mask.
Yeah.
Everybody wear a mask.
He was very nice, and he was
I
very
bet.
sober when we met. So it was
Oh,
cool.
thank goodness. I mean, that's even, that's like getting a gem comic that you're not supposed to get. That's amazing. I don't have any props yet, but I'll find one soon. I don't have any.
Yeah, usually Lee's the prop master on the
Yeah.
show. Usually Lee has something.
I got this
Philadelphia
prop
related.
that I'm going to use later, but that's not for this show. But yeah.
Yeah.
I'll, you know what I'll do? I'll simply do this.
There you go.
There you go.
Yes, like, subscribe,
Yes.
heart, all that fun stuff on the episode. So,
Everybody wants likes.
yes, likes. That's what it's all about.
Just want listens.
Yeah.
But I just thought I just think the baseball plan is hodgepodge because
Mhm.
I don't like the idea that these players can come and go as they please. And
Yeah.
there is not, it was very funny when the protocol book came out that the league had given the players. It was 101 pages. And I had just read a translated version of the Bundesliga book. I had found it online. And I read part of it, and there's like 20 pages of what they're supposed to do when they're home. Like, this is how you're going to make this sport work. And there's not a thing in the baseball book. So my argument has always been, if there's nothing to tell these young players who think they're invulnerable what to do when they're in the player parking lot and they're driving out with no traffic, by the way, because they can, there's no fans at these games, and they can literally go wherever they want. And when the idea that they weren't going to isolate baseball came about, I was on and I'm not just doing this to plug, but on my Twitch channel, I did a show with Torrey Hunter and Jock Jones, two longtime friends. And Torrey Hunter, I looked him right in the eye, just like I'm looking at you guys, and I said, do you think the players will respect the quarantine rules? And he looked at me, he said, quarantine rules? He said, half the clubhouse is going to be on Tinder during the national anthem. And I went, oh my God, this is an awful plan. Like this is awful. Don't do this. And what I wanted, because I know that there's a collective bargaining agreement coming up at the end of next year, I wanted this organization to be forward thinking. And I can reference what I mean by forward thinking, but baseball's not that.
No.
Baseball put this hodgepodge garbage together just to save face. And they know that the diehards will just be gaga, like, baseball's back. And they're
Guilty as
masking
charged.
their real problems. And they're literally going to be, the owners are going to cry poverty. The players are going to be like, you're full of crap. And there's going to be Armageddon. And if you think there was vitriol when there was no baseball now, imagine what it's like when we're back from the pandemic and it's because of stupid labor. And my argument was gas this season, blame it on COVID, because we would have been upset. Carcillo would have cried. But the reality of it is that's what's safer anyway.
Yeah.
And then come back with 5 years of labor peace, April 2021, and fans in the stands. And I thought then we'd bring them back with open arms. You'd get a hero's welcome, but instead you had to do this. And there's no other way to describe it. Hodgepodge at best.
I'll follow up two things here. First off, I want to confirm that Ray Carcillo did in fact go, hoo hoo, ha ha, baseball's back when he found out it was back. That was exactly what he said. And you're right. He would have done the boo hoo.
Manfred's crying. He's like, we couldn't reach an agreement. And people like Ray are just like, yay, it's here.
We also did talk about this, just kind of opening this up a tiny bit, that it's interesting how like the NHL was the first team to declare coming back, but they're the last team to start. Right. And then the NBA comes back with a pretty good, in my opinion, plan about isolating at Disney World, obviously, with some,
even though no one's isolating down there right
now.
Yeah,
exactly. So with some weird things. And then, football, we'll see. The things we didn't understand with baseball was why they didn't decide to do bubble cities. Now, the only logical, and logical is really not even the word to use here, but the only reason that came out that was like, you might have a point was like, well, every stadium's a different size, so forth and so on. But that's not really.
That wasn't it. That wasn't it at all. I can tell you what.
Please tell us what it was, because I don't understand.
The original plan was they wanted everybody to go to Arizona.
Yeah.
Because there's like 12 spring training facilities in a short radius, so
Yeah,
everything's a bus ride, even though those bus rides are German-fested cesspools. But this idea was what they didn't like, and I had an argument with somebody from the union about this because I have a lot of friends at the union. My whole thing was you can't play in Arizona in July.
Yeah.
Because forget COVID, players would melt.
It's 110
like
degrees,
it's hot. So what I suggested, my plan, because I'm not one of those people who just rips a plan and doesn't have at least some kind of offering for, and I'm not telling you have to like my idea, but my idea was 81 games, September, October, November in Florida and Arizona, with the playoffs and World Series in December. And I thought there was historical precedent because if you think about it, we had a national tragedy that led to the creation of Mr. November. Yep. This is not enough of a national tragedy to create a Mr. December. And I thought that idea, because then the weather is livable in Florida and Arizona, and you could somewhat isolate.
Yeah.
And people were like, well, no sports. But if you think about it, we don't know what football is going to be, and I don't like what I see. And this argument from the NBA and the NHL, they're going to end in August and September. Now, you mentioned hockey, and I'm not punishing hockey for their timetable. Their timetable is absolutely right because, A, they're doing it the safest of all the sports.
Yeah, in a different country, too. Yeah.
Gary Bettman did something, and I credit him for it, so I'm not going to be a hypocrite and say that it was bad. I thought the seasons were over. Like, I thought – so did you. Like, we all thought the NBA and the NHL were done. And – what Gary Bettman decided after 2 weeks is he let the players go to their homes, because originally when it was suspended, he asked all the players to stay in their team's home city. But then you had guys going to Switzerland and Russia and Europe and there and all over the place. And that's why they needed more time, because they had to get these players back. Yeah. And I didn't think that was even going to be possible. So even though the NHL was first, it was going to be harder for them to get it back. And then Gary Bettman gave a big FU to the government here, because originally the bubble cities were going to be Vegas and either Columbus or Pittsburgh. And he said, no, screw that. You're too fractured. We'll go to Toronto and Edmonton. Yeah. And now if you break the bubble in Toronto, your team loses a draft pick.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's as isolated as humanly possible. Yeah. I'm sorry, hands down winner, the hockey. Hockey absolutely gets the reward for how they're coming back.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, they go to Canada where obviously the population's a lot less, the threat of coronavirus is a lot less.
Well, and they flatten the curve because they have one government and everybody believes in it.
Yeah, they have a leader.
Exactly. But go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, but no, I mean, we mentioned Toronto now a few times, obviously, and we're talking about the baseball's plan. And one of the things that has come about, obviously, in the last few days is, speaking of Toronto, is they're now the Buffalo Blue Jays, at least for these 60 games. You want to talk about, never mean hodgepodge. I mean, this was a complete and total cluster, because Canada obviously was like, no, we don't want a team going back and forth from the States to travel, and understandably so, can completely understand what the Canadian government. Although, by the way, the Toronto mayor and the premier of Ontario were both okay with it. It was the federal Canadian government who put the mix on.
But did you hear why? That? Because everybody's not reporting the whole story. In Toronto, what they were promising was that they were going to have a police escorted airport to that Rogers Center Field Hotel.
Right.
And they were not leaving the building for the duration of the series. So technically, they were not stepping foot in Toronto. It was just an airport to a ballpark and not leaving the ballpark, because they were literally staying at that ballpark. And they couldn't get the Blue Jays to sign off on that. Because the Blue Jay players were like, no, we rented apartments. We have houses. We don't want that. And that's when the Canadian government said, sorry. And I didn't want them going to a major league stadium, because that's double the cleaning.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, why would you do that? What I wanted it to be was Hartford, Connecticut, or New Haven, or Charlotte, because then you're closer to more of your opponents.
Yeah,
now,
I heard
Buffalo, not only
are
they up in Buffalo, but now they have to take a plane everywhere. And what happens on planes?
Yeah, that makes far too much sense, though, Seth, that plan you just had. And we all know that in big corporations, if it makes sense, it is definitely not going to happen.
Well, not with Robbie Manfred. No.
Yeah. But here's the other follow-up question I've got for you. Baseball is always slow to innovate, always slow to change. And one of the things Ray and I have talked about on other episodes is just the general lack of innovation during this time. Not every league. Like I know that the NHL is doing a lot now with their camera angles. They're really going to try and make the experience a lot better. We know the NBA has got a lot of technologies they're trying to make sure that the coronavirus is taken care of with the rings that are
power rings.
Exactly.
No oath. And I said, without an oath, it's nothing.
Yeah, that's true too. Baseball just cannot seem to get their head around innovating fast enough. I mean, and then so this is my question: one is what other innovations do you wish they had done? Obviously, we all wanted bubble cities here on this call. The other question is, do you think the DH stays in the NL moving forward, or do you think they revert back after this season?
Well, that has to do with the CBA. The reason for the pitcher hitting is they didn't want. They're just worried about injury, and they didn't know at the time when they were negotiating. They didn't know who had been throwing as much and who wasn't. So they didn't know who was ready and who wasn't. So they didn't want to put guys in positions to get hurt. That's why the DH happened. If they negotiate that going forward, okay. The extra inning thing is stupid as stupid gets.
Thank you.
Well, just the idea that no one has ever complained about a baseball game going extra innings, because extra innings are usually the fun part. What people complain about is all the swings and misses during the 9 goddamn innings that you have. Yeah, that's your problem, and baseball doesn't agree with that. And Rob Manfred hates me anyway. It's fine. This argument, I'll tell you that story. This is from the last year's World Series. Actually, the last time I was supposed to be at Nationals Park, I found out that Rob is super mad, and he and I used to go out back in the early 2000s when I worked for MLB. I covered the almost strike in 2002. That was legitimately, like, there was a strike date and all that stuff. And Manfred was a lawyer for the league. And we used to I did a radio show, and then I used to have to go over to Park Avenue and just camp out in case there was a settlement. And then I could interview, the parties at B, Don Fear and Gene Norris, and I knew those guys too. And Manfred and I were buddies. Like, we would go get pizza. We would get beers every once in a while. And we would talk a lot, and he remembers, and I remember. He also subscribes to Sports with Friends, and heard a couple of episodes where I ripped him to shreds, and he's mad. What can I say? He's mad. And when the rule, there's a general rule. Ray knows this. Lee, I'm so sorry, I don't know the whole background, but there's a general rule in the media, and I'm just trying not to be condescending. In the media, if you get a credential and you don't take it, if you don't tell them, you'll get blacklisted. Like, never do that. So I got a gig up in Syracuse. I'm teaching a class, and I was going up there for a weekend, and it was the weekend that the Nationals were hosting the Astros in the World Series, and I couldn't go. So I emailed PR, my buddy Johnny, over at MLB PR, and I said, hey, man, I'm not going to be there, so don't use my seat. Take my credential away, give it to somebody else, just doing everything on the up and up. He was like, thanks, appreciate it. By the way, Rob would like to see you. I went, oh.
That sounds ominous.
And I played it. No, but I played it off. I wrote back, awesome. I said, I'll bring my microphone. We'll do a podcast. And he said, nope. He said, we're having a conversation. So we had made a deal that I reached out to him in January, and I heard back end of February, and we were going to set something up for March. And then the pandemic hit, and we never did.
Wow.
But that's okay. It's fine.
It'll happen at some point.
He's got a lot on his plate right now, so.
Yeah. Oh, and my complaints with him have nothing to do with the pandemic. He didn't create the pandemic.
No.
You know what I mean? He wasn't in Wuhan. Don't worry. He wasn't in Wuhan.
I'm sure we're going to talk about this with something else today. But look,
can I just plug this book?
Yeah,
I
please.
didn't write this. But this is Eddie Dominguez is an old MLB. He's a former Boston police detective who worked for baseball for 15 years. That's how I know him. And he and I, we went on all kinds of capers together. But Eddie is the guy who uncovered biogenesis and a bunch of other things. And he was unceremoniously fired in 2014 and he wrote a book. And the book is not just a rip job. Terry Thompson and Christian Redd, two of the great investigative journalists of our time, they used to work for the New York Daily News, and they corroborated every claim that Eddie made.
Wow.
And if you read that book, Rob Manfred should be in jail. He's a flat out criminal. He oversaw human trafficking.
Wow.
Like, he oversaw human trafficking for Cuban baseball players. Ask Rob Manfred. When you get him on Geeks Who Love Sports, just ask Rob Manfred, how did Yasiel Puig come into this country? And he can't answer it. Right, and he can't answer it. And so I said, this is a joke. And not only is this sport falling apart, but it's literally rudderless. And Rob heard that episode.
Of course he did. Of course he heard that episode. Well, look, here's the deal.
Why couldn't you do the one with Kevin Smith, huh?
Look, if you're in a position of power, you're going to get criticized. You're going to get criticism, even if you do it perfectly, which is not being done here, obviously. So it's always disappointing to hear that. Like, I understand when people of power are upset that someone said something, but I never understood that, you shouldn't have said criticism about me. That comes with the job. So if you can't take you can't take that.
Gary Bettman, who I like a lot, he looked me in the eye once and said, I cancel a season. I can't go anywhere and not get booed. He said, and I sent him an email because I asked him if they're going to have a fake crowd. And he wrote back, he said, if there's a fake crowd, they'll fake boo me when I get the
Now, I'll tell you this right now. So I used to work at the National Hockey League, and I am not against. I'm not an anti-Bettman person. I think he's done a lot of right and a lot of wrong, in my opinion. But he's done more for hockey than anyone.
Oh, anyone. He rebuilt the sport, and he canceled the season to do it. And he can look you in the eye and say, "I made a better sport," and he's right.
Yeah.
It's not flawless. He's not flawless by any stretch, but to me, he's the best of the four.
I see, and I agree with you on that. And we always run into, our audience loves it when we talk about this because they don't agree with us.
Commissioners?
But Gary Bettman in general, but commissioners in general, because we always talk about it's not always the evil commissioners and owners versus the beautifully loved players. It's not that simple. No. And the 2005 lockout, when you study that, you realize that the players were out of their mind for what they wanted. Out of their mind. It made no sense.
It had to happen.
And Bettman has expanded this sport to the point that it is today. And I said, if you need any proof, and you know this, if you need any proof, look at the revenue in 2004 and the players' salaries and look at it today. I remember that
I think tons more money.
Yeah. And I remember, I think Jaromir Jagr, not to go on a tangent here, I think Jaromir Jagr was playing for the Capitals at that time. His salary was so high, it was going to bankrupt the team in like a couple of years. So, the point I'm trying to make is that, it's never black and white with sports commissioners or owners.
No, but give the NHL credit because during this pandemic, they extended their CBA 4 years.
They did.
What were they doing? When people were sitting there watching classic games and calling video games on a Twitch channel, like what were people doing? They got to work, and I give them credit. People give Ford a lot of credit, right? Because Ford realized right away, hey, nobody's going to drive, nobody's buying cars, so let's stop making cars. We know how to make ventilators. Cool, let's do that. Smart. And everyone applauded them. Whatever political stance you have, you cannot argue Ford did a great job.
Yeah, they acted. We talked about this in business, sports, geekdom. We actually spoke about this. Action, like taking action when you know what's happening. It's the exact opposite. Like you look at we'll get into this, the comic book world. Like some people are taking smart action right now. Some people are being crazy.
Can I give you my suggestion? My suggestion for all the shows that got their season finales cut short, like The Flash and Supergirl and all those. First of all the actors would have done their voice lines in their houses. And Flash animation, I'm not talking about superstar animation. Flash animation you could do in 6 weeks.
Yep.
And you could have animated the finales of all the scripts and aired them as flat like Archer. They would all look like Archer, but they could have done it, and you could have had it and tie up all the storylines, and everyone would have praised you.
Yeah. And it would have probably given birth to a completely new style of TV show they didn't even know would be valued.
And Ruby Rose couldn't have complained about putting on the costume.
That's a whole.
She's not injured. Not injured.
Not injured.
Yeah, she's
God.
not. Wink, wink. But we'll before we get into comic books and stuff, and we do have a lot of the comic book stuff to talk to you about. We did mention obviously hockey a little bit. You have a Seattle shirt on there, Seth. You're a big Seattle guy. Obviously, speaking of the expansion of hockey and the growth of hockey, the 32nd team just got their name this week. They are officially the Seattle Kraken. They'll be playing in the Crack House.
You got to say it better than that, Ray. You got to say it better than that. There's a Seattle Kraken. You know,
Release the Kraken.
Thank you. That's what I'm looking for.
You think they're going to play that every time they come on the ice?
I don't know. The Devils play Running with the Devil for the first 10 years of their existence too much.
Forever. And I couldn't criticize the Kraken because I'm not because I like it, but I root for a team that was the Devils. And when I was 8 years old, I voted for the team name. So I always think, and my dad, God bless him, he's still alive, but he lied to me when I was 8 years old and told me it was a really close vote. And he said to me, he said, you better send that in because it's not going to, you got to vote. And I voted for Devils. And when they got named the Devils, I was like, I did that. I mattered.
Hey, listen, it is. I'm a Flyers fan, born and raised in Philadelphia.
I can't.
Now, here's what's funny. I've done more work.
Oh my God, I hate the Flyers. And that's one of my favorite Twitter things.
Listen, first off, thank you for your hate. We love it. We thrive on it. You know that. There's nothing. I'm going to remind you this, Seth. No one hates Philadelphia.
Scott Stevens, Eric Lindros. That's all I have to say.
Oh, that's never heard that one. But I'm going to tell you two things. One is just remember this: nobody hates Philadelphia sports more than people in Philadelphia. Number one. Number two is McFarlane should have made a figure of Scott Stevens laying out.
Oh, that would have been awesome.
I mean,
that would have been so cool.
Even I'm saying that, moments in time.
That would have been awesome. In 2011, I had joined Twitter in 2009, but my first time getting real vitriol was in 2011. My second daughter, who's now 8 years old, she was born, and we took her. It was the dead of winter, and we took her in like January or February to the mall just to push her on the stroller inside to get her to fall asleep. And the Devils are playing the Flyers on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon. It's an afternoon game, but it's in Philadelphia. And the Devils are winning after 2 periods, 5-0. And I had just completed, I did pre and post for the Phillies in 2011. So I would say, I didn't know this, but I would say half my following was from Philadelphia.
Sure.
And I didn't realize that at any time. And all I wrote was, every one of those goals feels great. And I got you're not one of us. Yeah. You're a traitor. How could you like the Devils? And it was because they figure in Philadelphia, if you're with one of their teams, and I love the Phillies, and I had a great experience with the Phillies, but man, if you're with one of their teams, you have to like all of their teams. Yeah, I don't mind the Sixers, and I don't mind the Eagles. They had no problem with either one of them. A kid I went to high school with is your general manager of the Eagles. Yeah. And
really?
Yeah. And I didn't know this, but I was in high school when he was a little kid, and I probably book checked him. But the idea that the Flyers, that's the one team I can't stand the Flyers.
Well, again, I want to thank you for that. That's a compliment to us, as we're always ranked the most intimidating fans in the league. I'll tell you this too. Philadelphia's
and your mascot's deranged.
What, Gritty? He's right here.
He's so stupid.
Well. Again, thank you.
Eyes. Put the eyes in one place.
Seth, if you're scared, I can't help you. But I can tell you this. He won't hug you when he sees you. All right? So, NJ Devil's way more original. You're right.
He's awful. He's boring. He's very boring. I understand that. And I can make fun of the Prudential Center because the Prudential Center, if you ever go into the men's room of the I don't know about the ladies' room, but I presume it's the same thing. And if you ever look at the handles of the urinals and the whatever, they all have engraved devil logos.
Yeah.
There's no way that's cheaper than auto flush.
Yeah.
Just get auto flush. Like, what are you doing?
Well, it's not just that.
So stupid.
Why would you put the logo on the toilet? I know exactly what you're talking about. I've been to the Pro many times.
That's where the franchise went after Bordeaux retired.
Yeah, well, as we said, what happened. But no. Look, here's the thing. Here's the deal: is that I understand. Philadelphia is a very proud sports city. It's one of the few cities. A lot of people don't realize this. I know you do, but a lot of people don't realize. There's not many cities in the country that have just 4 sports teams, and all of our teams are in the same location. It's very unique.
Oh, it's awesome. It's great.
That
great
area
complex.
is fantastic.
It's perfect.
Yeah. And I will tell you this: that this is what's funny. I have worked or played in some format with every team in the old Atlantic Division, except for the Flyers. For some reason, the guy from Philadelphia that played hockey can't get on the ice with the Flyers, can't do anything with the Flyers. To be fair, not that I'm trying so much anymore, but the Devils organization, I have a business partner who's in the organization. I've skated with them during the lockout. They have been nothing but kind to me. So it's very hard for me to hate the Devils like I did when I was a kid. I mean, I do appreciate that you ended my youth back in, 2000. That was a really great time to realize, like, oh, no, not everything's fair. But yeah, it's a proud
2000.
franchise.
I was in Seattle, and my friend, I was the only person in the whole state watching that final.
Yeah.
And he said to me, can you want to come over or something? Because you can't win a championship by yourself. So that final, I went to my buddy's house, and he'd never seen a hockey game before, but we watched Devils Stars. I remember
the Ducks, right? It was a great
no, the
final.
Ducks was 03. I was
03,
back here by.
Oh, you're talking about it. Okay, I got. Yeah, you're right. 2000 was the Stars, and they were that was them coming back to the Cup final. But all right, so Ray asked about the Kraken. So we do have to ask about the Kraken, it's a great name, but I had a better name in my mind.
Better logo. It's a great logo.
It's a fantastic logo.
And
folks over in Columbus can learn something.
I have to get a hat. It's so cool.
People were ripping the logo, and I said, "No, guys, that's not bad.
Real good.
Bad is the Blue Jackets. The Blue Jackets are really bad.
That's a bad logo.
The Golden Knights and the Kraken, it's a pretty cool logo. And they got a lot of places to go with it, and even their secondary logo of the anchor with the skyhook is really good.
And they've already sold a ton of merchandise, by the way. Like they outsold, I think, what was it double or 50% or something more than the Knights did in the same time period. So
Seattle,
also,
I mean, you could take your show on a huge derailment, but Seattle is such a great sports town, and they were hurt so much by the loss of the basketball team. And they went on a mission to prove, subconsciously, but they went on a mission to prove that they were a good sports town. And the two examples are when they got their football stadium, it couldn't just be a loud place. It had to be the loudest, and they had to get the decibel meters, and they had to get the loudest. And then that soccer team, they supported that soccer team when nobody else was supporting the MLS. They supported that because they just want to say that any sports franchise will work, and there will not be an empty seat provided the pandemic goes away. There will not be an empty seat for a Kraken game for decades.
Well, and the other thing too is, like, I can tell you this from a hockey standpoint, is that I think there was a time where there was a talk of like, oh, maybe we can root for Vancouver, but Vancouver never accepted Seattle. And I've talked to a lot of fans in Seattle. It's just they never got any kind of welcoming arms from Vancouver.
I used to drive up there. When the Devils would play the Canucks, I would drive up there to Vancouver when I lived in Seattle to go see them. And the place used to be called the GM Place. Yeah. Everyone called it the Garage, which is a great name. A great name for a building.
But, Ray and I were in Seattle, of course, last year for PAX West. Very happy. Yeah, we were talking to some of the fans in our panel. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I really enjoy Seattle. Yes,
I love it.
And they're way out there on the West Coast. We don't have to worry about them more than twice a year. So it's going to be
it's such a beautiful place. And the weather is so much better than Philadelphia or New York or New Jersey.
Yeah, it's just not cloudy with a side of sarcasm all the time. I love it.
But Lee, you had an alternate name for the Kraken, didn't you?
I did. Yeah. So I didn't come up with this. A friend of mine did. But and again, look, everyone's got their other name for a team. Kraken works fine. The name I thought would be really brilliant was the Seattle Grind, because you could work that in a lot of ways. You could easily have gotten a Starship that Geeks Like Sports, right? The Starbucks sponsorship. You could have called it, the Starbucks Arena or whatever, the Starbucks Cup.
But Starbucks is not their name is mud now in Seattle for the last 10 years.
That's true too.
Howard Schultz, the slimeball, who in the saga of the Sonics is the Riddler in the story. Yeah. He's the Riddler. David Stern is the Lex Luthor, the mastermind behind the whole bit of it, and Clay Bennett is the Joker. He's the worst of them all.
Seth, you're made for the show, man.
Those three yim yams conspired to get rid of a basketball team. And I was the backup pre and post game host for the Sonics for 3 years, and it was never really my thing. I would do 10, 15 games a year, but I met all those people, and I know all that organization, and it was broken-hearted people. So many friends of mine lost their jobs when they scammed that team. And you took a team from market 13 and brought them into market 38 only because of a back alley shady deal. And when David Stern died, I promised that I would dedicate the last 20 minutes of my podcast to someone from Seattle. Because if you're going to praise David Stern and you're going to tell a story completely, he is a slimeball who stole the Seattle Supersonics.
You know, I was remember the documentary Save Our Sonics. Did you ever see that?
Or Sonic Skate, you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Skate,
And
yeah.
and then the trailer they said, that was well done.
Jason Reed,
Yeah.
that's my buddy. Yeah, and Ray remembers. I brought those guys into the ESPN studios when they were peddling the film, and they actually sold it to NBC, and it was on NBC Sports Network.
That's actually where I saw it. And the thing is, it just shows the slimy side of sports.
The emails exist. Like the emails are sitting there, and they exist. When Hurricane Katrina happened, Clay Bennett offered his building rent free for the Hornets. They were the Hornets then, and the Hornets played there for 2 seasons, and they rebuilt New Orleans to a degree. And David Stern literally said, "I owe you one." Oh, I owe you. Like the emails exist. Like none of this is my opinion. These are
exactly.
Facts. This has been documented.
And
the Riddler part's mine.
Well, again, that works for this show perfectly.
Yeah, it works for the show. It's a good match.
Sonic Skate. Definitely see Sonic Skate if you haven't seen that already. It was very slimy. That's all I'm going to say. It was below slimy and what happened there. But look, with that said, Seattle Grind, I thought that was a cool name.
Cool.
I'm not upset with the Kraken. I think that was obvious. That's what it was going to be. And I want to say this again publicly. As Seth said, the logo is phenomenal. The marketing, everything looks phenomenal. The jerseys look great. It's a job well done. Shows why the team belonged there. It'll be interesting to see the Coyotes in the Central Division where they probably belong anyway. Yep. And it's going to be great. A 32-team NHL is a big deal. It also goes back to what we talked about. Gary Bettman, he's the second league to get to 32 teams. It's a big deal. All right, the NHL is not afraid to innovate, to try things, and I think that it's a league that is going to keep getting more and more praise. I could see the sport growing over the next 2 years.
Well, and they're growing by accident because what they stopped doing is trying. What they did was make sure that they're P1s. You guys know what that means. P1s are the people that'll watch no matter what you put on.
Right.
And make sure that the Flyer fan loves you in Philadelphia and the Red Wing fan loves you in Detroit. Make sure that the teams that you have these loyal fan bases and satisfy those fans. And then everybody else will catch on.
Yeah.
And all I tell you, I'm a big Prince fan. And not everybody is, right? Not everybody likes his music, but not everybody likes him to the level that I like him. And all I say is watch one Prince concert, look me in the eye and tell me it sucks. That's what I say about hockey. Go to a hockey game, watch a hockey game in person, look me in the eye and tell me that's awful.
Yeah, it's never happened in my experience.
Never.
Nope. If you want to get someone in the game, you bring them to a game. You don't just watch it on TV.
Yeah, exactly. And it catches on.
Kraken.
Yes. And also, by the way, their first sponsor is, so not surprisingly, Kraken Rum. So instead of Starbucks. So there you go.
I would have loved to have been in the room where they were discussing this. Listen, we'll name the team Kraken if you're an official sponsor.
That was on Twitter the minute they got the team.
It was.
Yeah.
It was on Twitter the minute they got the team. And in all the polls, that was the one. It was hands down. It would have been a massive upset if they didn't go with that.
Yeah, totally agree with you on that. And I'm welcome to the NHL. It's good to have you, Seattle.
Yep.
Yeah. So real quick, last sports question. Just because talking about the NHL, we got playoffs, also still talking about MLB a little bit. Different playoff formats is happening right now. NHL, obviously, you have a whole new round. You have 24 teams. Baseball, we found out on opening day, is expanding to 16 teams. Seth, what are your thoughts on the new playoff formats for both of these leagues? Obviously, I'm probably not going to be, this going forward.
Well, but the thing is that every situation is isolated, in my opinion. Every sport is completely different. The NBA made sense because from a risk standpoint, you're diminishing the risk every 10 days. It's going to start with 24 teams, then it goes to 16, then it goes to 8 to 4 to 2. And every time, once you're eliminated, your bubble, you're out of the bubble. And that helps. That really helps a lot. The baseball one is so dumb. And my fantasy would be, I want Cleveland to face Colorado and a blizzard to wipe out both cities. That would be the ultimate World Series.
I love it.
It's so stupid. It's so dumb. What they're trying to do is saying that we can make more money if we have more playoff games. And the networks are dying for content. So ESPN and Turner, they all bought it right away. And it's fine. Again, I don't kill baseball for the pandemic. They are doing whatever they should do. what I fear, and my genuine fear is, I don't worry about Juan Soto getting COVID-19. I worry about the play-by-play guys and the PR guys that are working their tail off, setting up all these cockamamie Zooms and all this stuff. And I worry about the coaches, and I worry about people that I have spent 26 years getting to know personally. And if any one of those guys gets sick and worse, goes on to a hospital or something really horrible, if any of that happens, I will never forgive these sports, because it wasn't worth it. The baseball plan is hodgepodge at best.
Yeah.
If they can pull it off, I'm not going to sit here and go, I told you so. If they pull it off, great, but I don't think they should be doing it.
The risk is so high for baseball. Again, at least the other sports.
Again, no isolation, and players can go wherever they
should have
want.
done bubble cities. Yep.
It should have done bubble cities.
That's all you have to think about.
And it would be interesting to see what the NFL does too, because the NFL, everything is easy. It's all even. It's the same size field no matter what. There's no difference in
the
that.
NFL's trying, though. The NFL, you have to have 2 negative tests, and what they say they're going to do is, if you test positive, they have intense contact tracing. Sorry.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then maybe the players will shy away. But I can't imagine, like, training camp sucks anyway, and it's 100 degrees in some of these cities.
Yeah.
And some of these teams are training right in the middle of hotspots.
Yeah.
I live in New Jersey, and we're doing wonderful. So I don't worry about the Jets players. What I think about is, what are the Dallas Cowboys doing? Or what are the Miami Dolphins doing? Or what are the Arizona Cardinals doing? And what are they are they literally going to stay home and say, I respect this? And if you think about locker rooms and clubhouses being fractured, like, I can go by baseball clubhouses because I know them better, but in a baseball clubhouse, you have your cool guys, you have your introverts, you have your shy guys, you have your party animals. It's a melting pot. And if we're an American melting pot, well, then 3 to 4 guys on each team probably think COVID's dumb and masks are wrong, and I'm 22, and if I get it, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And they're going to then take their money, which they have gobs of it, and just do whatever. And that's my fear. My fear is those people, because, again, I'm not political. I'm right down the middle. I like both parties, but I can't stand these nut jobs, because masks are not political, and
no, they're not,
and it's stupid, and all we're trying to do is save people.
Ray and I have been strong proponents of wearing masks, to the dismay of at least one fan that follows us. But I'll tell you this too.
Mad at you guys?
He's mad at me.
We got some fun YouTube comments. Yeah,
he's mad at me. I happen to marry a doctor that might know something about this, but I don't want to give him any.
But there's a history with that. Like, if you look in this, I saw an article in the San Francisco Chronicle in 1918. Where there's a hearing about wearing masks during the Spanish flu. And in 1968, there were hearings about the seatbelt.
Yeah,
like,
crazy.
People are just dumb. It's amazing that we've evolved.
Yeah, it is. I'll tell you 2 things again. You always seem to bring up a gem. Content training or tracing, probably not a bad idea for certain aspects.
Great, yeah.
All right,
the guys who did the horse game in April. Let's find out how they came up with that idea to go live and not record that on Zoom.
You heard it here first, content tracing. The other thing, too, is, like, we spoke to Mark Friedman of the Philadelphia Flyers, and we asked him about testing. And at least, again, just looking at different sports.
I didn't download that episode.
It's okay. The NHL it's constant. In fact, he had to miss his first recording with us because he had to go get tested. So
we had
at least someone like him. Yeah, we know, like, he's saying it's massive amounts of testing. Again, the NHL caliber of person, like, you were going through the clubhouse of a baseball team, like 98% of NHL players are just, good farm kids who do what they're told. That's the NHL. I mean, every locker room I've ever been in has been like that, for the exception of maybe like a Sean Avery. Most of these guys stay home and they're quiet.
Waving his stick.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But look, I do want to say this. I agree with what you said, is that if anyone gets sick or worse, or has to be intubated in a hospital or worse, it wasn't worth it. And you got to hope that the teams have been thinking about it. Again, the players that Ray and I have spoken to have been incredibly respectful of it. And they're really understanding of that. But I think you're right. I mean, it just takes one. All right. I mean, I know right now, like, college athletics are in hell right now because these kids cannot stay home. They just can't handle it. And there's parties and, things like that. So we'll see.
The day we're recording, the Reds and Marlins had lineup changes because of COVID.
It's amazing.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
they played all weekend.
Mike Moustakas is out. I know for
Right.
sure because of
and they played all weekend. And if you watch these games, like the batter, the catcher, and the umpire are not contact tracing. And I think the first baseman should have a mask.
I do too.
Yeah,
But when he's holding the runner on, and they're not doing that. So again, Juan Soto, if you just think about it, everyone in the Nationals clubhouse was exposed.
Yeah.
If I'm the Yankees, I'm thinking, no, don't do this. And how dare baseball let them have a 2-hour rain delay?
Oh God.
On Thursday night, when you're
tweeted
trying
this.
to keep guys out.
No,
You
sit
told them
together.
don't shower. You told them
this.
don't shower in the clubhouse, to get out of that clubhouse as fast as you can. But here, let's have a card game.
I tweeted this immediately when that rain delay happened. I said, if this rain delay lasts more than 20 minutes, call the game. You have to call the game because it's
and all
ridiculous.
these Yankee fans are like, yeah, call the game because we're winning.
That's exactly what I said. I wonder
it wasn't just because we were winning. It's because, like you said, for the sake of safety.
The score when I said it.
They were winning. Trust me.
You must have money on the Yankees.
It was 4-1 Yankees. But the point is that like you said, everybody's crammed into a clubhouse. They're on top of each other.
Ray, I'm sure that's exactly why you wanted them to. I remember the conversation we had about that because we didn't.
But I tweeted it immediately when the rain delay.
Should I set them off? I can do it.
Oh gosh.
Speaking of the Yankees, no, I'm not going to go there.
Yankees are still winning, by the way, 3-2 right now.
Oh boy.
July 26th.
Yeah, but if you're listening to this in the future.
Yeah, I know. They'll be like, what game is he
on my
talking
podcast,
about? Yeah.
I always say, if you're listening to this in the future, just tell me how the flying car is.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got one of those behind me too. There it is.
Yeah. All right, so that does it for the sports part. Obviously, though, Seth, you are also you are like us. You are a huge geek. I love your DC Daily sign is in the background there from.
You gave that to me.
Yes, when Seth was a guest on when I was a writer producer for DC Daily.
Did you see what I tweeted when they had their last episode?
No, I missed it.
They had 450 episodes, right? They ended on 450, and I said, "Congratulations on 449 great episodes and one eh."
Yeah. No, it was
that show doesn't exist anymore. I keep the sign up. I put that sign up when they got canceled.
Yeah, I've been
like a victory flag.
I left about halfway through the series run, so
Right, it was better when you were there, Ray.
Well, I appreciate that.
He's got a Prince sticker there too. Look at that. He sticks by his word. I like it.
Oh yeah.
I worked with him in 2013, and I got that when I worked with him.
That's cool.
Is it cool.
Weird as they say, or just a great guy?
Oh, he was awesome. He was awesome.
Great. That's great to hear.
Yeah, we would kill the last, however long this podcast is, we'd kill it if I told that story. But it's a great story. Worked with him for a year, and he was super fun.
That's great.
Well, we'll definitely have to have you on again. I mean, you always have an open invite, but we still got to talk about comic books. We got a lot of stuff going on with Justice League. We've had some teases this week. We had some rumors. Three big ones. Obviously, Batfleck is getting a lot of online pressure to possibly come back, possibly do something else. There's been rumors of Ryan Reynolds making a cameo as Green Lantern.
Green Lantern, I know. That's great.
Yeah, I think that would be cool. He sounds like he'd be down for it. Not sure what would have to be worked out there. And then, of course, the big one, which we got, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, was we actually saw footage of the black Superman suit with Henry Cavill. He goes and meets Alfred wearing the dark suit. So just first off, what is your thoughts about, obviously, the release, the Snyder Cut movement actually coming to fruition, that we are getting the Snyder Cut sometime next year? And then what do you think about all these little rumors and leaks and stuff now surrounding it? Are you more excited for the idea? Are you less excited? Where's your head at with this?
It's the temperature.
Well, I was surprised when they announced it that it wasn't closer to being ready, because I thought the whole idea was to capitalize on the pandemic. Mm-hmm. I was surprised that they waited this long. Like, they announced it, and then they're like, well, we have a lot of work to do. It's going to take a year. And I was like, it didn't take a year. It didn't take a year to get the Richard Donner cut for Superman 2. Like, they found that footage. And now I'm hearing, I don't know if you guys heard this rumor, but there's a rumor that there's a 3.5 hour Joel Schumacher cut of Batman Forever. And I want that now. I want that yesterday. the idea of Justice League, and I owe a lot to Zack Snyder, because Zack Snyder is the reason I have the Hall of Justice podcast. I'll tell that really fast. Zack Snyder came on when I had absolutely no listeners, and it was through something I was working on through NBC Sports Radio, and Zack Snyder was doing something for the Super Bowl when the Super Bowl was in San Francisco, and they asked me to give questions on what you would ask Zack Snyder in an interview. And I said, I would, but can I have him for 10 minutes for this podcast that I just started? And he came on, and I didn't know he was going to do this, but he ripped Superman fans. And it went really viral.
Yeah.
And if you Google Zack Snyder Hall of Justice podcast, those articles are still there in Variety and Hollywood Reporter and all those places. And they all put the link. And that podcast got over 330,000 downloads. Like it crushed it. And then we had something, so I owe a lot to Zack Snyder. And I have the utmost respect for him. If I have to crush one of those movies, Man of Steel still sucks. But the reality of it is that he is a guy who he would never have walked away under those circumstances unless this was part of the plan originally. He had an awful tragedy. His daughter committed suicide. And I remember when that happened, because again, I owe Zack Snyder any pennies I have made off the Hall of Justice podcast, I owe to Zack Snyder. And the idea that he was walking away and that no one was going to complete his vision, and that they changed it so dramatically. Yeah. And that's all you've heard from Henry Cavill, from Affleck, from all these people, is that it was changed so dramatically, and it was awful. Yeah. It's amazing that Zack Snyder was not in a position to be louder. Like, I admire Zack Snyder for holding his tongue for as long as they did when the movement started. And, just to bring it to DC, like when Young Justice was recreated, when they decided to launch that app and they were going to recreate Young Justice, my reaction was, holy crap, like Twitter is powerful. And it became about the Snyder Cut. And I hope this thing is great. I hope this thing is amazing. And I hope that people, as soon as they see it, don't then go, oh, I need Henry Cavill to be Superman again. And he has to do this, and we have to do that, and we have to do this. And I hope that doesn't happen, because those movies have lacked direction for so long that if you're going to hodgepodge put one together, I hope now people don't start saying, well, now you need Justice League 2. Like, now he has to face Darkseid and all these things. Like, I don't know where that's all going to go. I hope it's great, but what I fear is that it's going to go out in HBO Max and we'll all be in movie theaters. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, like they're going to change it. I think it's going to become a movie that gets released, because if the pandemic is over and they're trying to jumpstart movie theaters to get people to go, that Justice League thing is the best thing they've got going for them. Absolutely. Wonder Woman 84 is the only movie I would consider going to a movie theater for. Black Widow's not doing it for me. I know how Black Widow ends.
Yeah. We've talked about this much on the show, is that whenever you do a prequel, the problem with prequels is where they have to end, or at least where they have to get you to.
Well, like, it just... the other thing too with that Black Widow movie is now what we're doing is, there must be Easter eggs, and that's how we're all going to go into it. That there's some clue about the future of Marvel.
Could have done that movie during Civil War. Like you had that movie, and don't say this is because there's a movement to have good women's storytelling. That's nonsense. You had Jessica Jones 5 years ago, and for a year that was the best thing Marvel had put out.
That's right. It's true. I'll tell you this, dude, just to go back on what you said. It is not surprising to me that DC was in a mess with that film, that it wasn't done. That's not surprising to me at all. Everything they've done recently
you could have put a period after you. Not surprising that DC's a mess.
Yeah. In fact, no, it's fine. We were joking. My brother and I have been joking that, when you go to see a DC film, it's just, you have to know it's going to be a hot mess, and you have to expect that. And every one of those movies has been a hot mess.
Why is Shazam in Philadelphia?
Why not?
Why? What's Philadelphia? There's Metropolis in Gotham City.
But where else are you going to believe people just shoot at people for no reason? Come on. No, listen. We're proud to have Shazam here. It says a lot about the city. I'm hoping Gritty is.
He's flying around South Philly.
Yeah, let's wait till
Market
Gritty will be the villain in the new movie. It'll be great. Until Gritty says Shazam, then we have no idea what's going to happen. But I did not.
Pretty good line. I'll steal that. I will
go for it. Just give us credit. You've already given us the gem.
I'll give you credit.
We already know how to get big now. We have to find Zack Snyder and get him on our show and tell him to rip on Superman.
Yeah.
I will tell you this though.
Rip on Superman fans.
That's or Batman. We'll figure
he
something.
Thinks Superman's great, and even though Man of Steel was bad.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that. I don't just. What did you not like about Man of Steel? Because I actually enjoyed it.
It's a military movie with an alien connotation. He's never Superman. She finds out who he is, and within 6 hours, she's in an alien spaceship. Yeah. There's no honoring the mythos. And I'm not saying you have to retell the same story. And I'm not asking you to do Christopher Reeve all over again. My argument was let him save a cat out of a tree for a minute. And it just gets so angry and he's so dark.
That's right.
And it worked for The Dark Knight and it worked for The Dark Knight Rises. But for Man of Steel, it never worked. Yeah. And I never cared about that that character. And I remember Heath Corson was on the Hall of Justice podcast, one of the early episodes of the show. And Heath Corson wrote Justice League War. And Justice League War, that started what they're now calling the Tuckerverse, which is based on a bunch of animated films based on the New 52. And he admits on the podcast that they told him to make Superman a dick. And I don't care. So that when he dies, I don't care.
That's fair. I understand where you're coming from. And like I said, they tried to revive that in Justice League when he was much more bright, and it didn't feel right.
Oh, when he's laying there and going, I wish I was dead.
Yeah, yeah. Or I believe in truth and justice. I was waiting for him to say, and the American way.
I haven't heard Henry Cavill say one thing where I was like, yes.
Well, I mean, in The Witcher.
Well, he's done things in his life, right?
Yeah.
In that as that character.
He only says two words in The Witcher, and they're all both 4 letters.
My proposal for HBO Max, if HBO Max wants to get you, my proposal, and I told Ray this, is I want a 13-episode Berlanti series where Brandon Routh was in the Crisis on Infinite Earths as the Kingdom Come Superman. But he was also, they reveal, the same guy from Superman Returns. So Brandon Routh, the arc of Christopher Reeve, he lives his life. He fights Nuclear Man and he fights Richard Pryor, but he also has the Joker blow up the Daily Planet. Like, he takes you to Kingdom Come. So give me a Brandon Routh series, and Brandon Routh would do this in a heartbeat.
Yes.
Give me a Brandon Routh series. You could do 8 episodes, 10, 13, I don't care. But take me from the end of Superman Returns to Kingdom Come.
Yeah, you have it there.
And you don't have to have him fight Luthor, so you don't have to hire Kevin Spacey.
Yeah.
You can have the Sun if you want to have the Sun. You can make him a focal point. You could have and use the John Williams theme, and you could have him fight the Parasite and Brainiac and Darkseid and all these different villains, and you could get that series, and that would be holy moly, that would be the greatest thing going.
Yeah, we've talked about this on the show that for some people maybe aren't huge Superman followers, that yes, there are actually more than one villain in Superman. There's quite a bit. Actually,
he actually has a pretty decent rogues gallery. It's not Batman's, but it's pretty. It's still
and Ross Webster could come back.
Yeah. There's a lot of ways that could. I love that.
That would be that. You didn't think that would be in your podcast?
No, I didn't.
The first Ross Webster reference.
That's what I was gonna say. That's a deep cut right there.
I'd also go as far to say that DC would never be as ambitious enough to pursue what you just said.
They would never do it. They would never do it. But,
they still can't figure out if they should pull the plug on DC Universe or not.
But if you think about it, the Crisis was the closest thing to get to superhero, like just a big superhero orgy. Like you had all of that.
It was
good. They went in every different direction. They went as far as they could take it. They went there. And you just launched HBO Max. Forget DC Universe. They know that that's going to eventually be absorbed into HBO Max. But if you want to make HBO Max a player and you want to combat Mandalorian, you got to have programming.
Yeah, and again, we talked about this too. That's the place to do it. That DC tends to work better on a TV cinematic universe, if you will, now than a film. And keeping in mind, cinema is probably going to change a lot over the next few years. And we talked about this with Black Widow. You know, how long are we going to? Here's a question for you, Seth. do they push back films indefinitely, or do they eventually cave and put something on digital streaming, assuming that this goes on longer than we wanted to?
I wish I could tell you. I know that the Nolan movie, that Tenet, they want to open that, and AMC has said they can't hold out much longer. I mean, their leases, people they pay rent on those places. So I don't know how they're going to do it, and I don't know from a content standpoint, how much of a delay has all of this meant.
Yeah.
The one I felt the worst for was Melissa Benoist, who timed her pregnancy around the Supergirl shooting schedule.
Yeah.
And now they can't do it because they didn't get to finish, and they couldn't even, they said they were 4 scenes away from finishing their season, and they couldn't do it because she was showing. And how much you took away Henry Cavill's mustache? How much money would it take to get Supergirl's body in there? And it's
take away the baby bump.
And I felt so bad because she is so responsible and cares so much of that for that character, and she is the reason to watch that weird show. And she's so brilliant, and all you want is for her to survive. I don't want to see Supergirl get caught in this because I root for her.
Yeah, and this is where the fans come in. This is where you said Twitter's a powerful place. So, the fans have to stand up. But, they've had a power over the last few years with some of this stuff. I mean, I don't like necessarily that every single film that's ever come out now is like, well, release this version of it, release that version of it. But,
one of my favorite episodes of our podcast that we did was I ripped Supergirl to shreds because I love it. I feel if you love something, you're allowed. And my biggest one was when Linda Carter was the president.
Yeah.
Linda Carter was the president, but Maggie Sawyer marries Supergirl's sister, or is gonna marry Supergirl's sister. And since when is Maggie Sawyer Mexican? And why is Maggie Sawyer's Mexican father upset about the wall that they want to build in against Mexicans? And I'm like, Linda Carter's the president, not Trump. And I didn't understand that. And my other big gripe with Supergirl was Jon Jones is an amazing character, but that's expensive. Like, he can't be green that much. So they have this accomplished actor, David Harwood, but they wrote a storyline where he goes to Mars and finds a bunch of Martians, and they all can't be green and white because that would be too much money. Why are they all black? If you could morph into anything, why wouldn't one guy be Asian and one guy be Indian and one guy be Mexican and one guy be French and one guy? Why would they all be black?
You're right. And again, I'm going to tuck this under the DC can't innovate.
It's like so backwards.
It goes back. It goes back with what I said before. It's a hot mess. It's going to be a hot mess. Again, spaghetti at the wall. Do this. Did you ever see the movie? What was it? It was that movie with Jason Alexander's in it. He's like the head of a tabloid, and they ask him, like, how do you make the stories in the newspaper? He takes a bunch of darts and throws them at a wall, and he picks the 5 stories together. It's like the Pope, aliens, and sex. There you go. Like, that's how they make that movie. It'll come to me in a minute. You guys keep talking. I'll remember what that was.
Film,
it was Blank Man. It was in Blank Man.
Well, like the Superman Lives, the Nicolas Cage Superman.
Yeah.
And how John Peters is making Kevin Smith write a giant spider into the plot, and then that giant spider comes into Wild Wild West with Will Smith. And it was John Peters was getting his spider no matter what.
Oh man. Well, unfortunately, Seth, we could probably talk to you all day, but we know that you're on a bit of a schedule, and we are as well, actually. But we really appreciate.
Who else are you interviewing? Let's just see. Is he going to be better?
Well, actually, you know what? I'll still go into this. So we're actually going to be interviewing. If you've seen the main episode this week, you've already seen it. But we're starting a new thing on our website. We're actually letting fans do game reviews. Right? We want to kind of invite our audience to get a little more involved.
Sorry, we shouldn't be expanding. This is dumb. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, this is the Lee E universe, not the DC universe. So it's actually
gotcha. Understood.
But no, we're inviting them to do it. So we're going to bring them on for a 10-minute segment when they do a review, and they can review a game. And so to ask, he would say he's not as good as you, Casey, the one we're interviewing today. He's good with stuff like that.
Okay.
This has been a great interview, though. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, we really appreciate you coming on, dude. It really means a lot. And I mean, like I said, you open invite whenever you want to come back on.
Sure.
talk about whatever, like, you're more than welcome to.
I say we take it a step further. We're demanding an invite.
Oh, sure.
Return.
Hey, man, we're all quarantined. Where are we going?
Exactly. See, this is my type of guy. I love it.
Exactly. But again,
People ask me on Twitter, they're like, who are you getting on Sports with Friends and Hall of Justice? And I'm like, I'm going to see what LeBron's doing. He's not doing anything.
Yeah.
Everybody, there was a month where I interviewed the busiest people in sports. So I had Kenny Albert, Ian Eagle, and this guy, Chris Majkowski, who Ray might know. He's the radio engineer for the New York Mets, New York Giants, New York Rangers, St. John's, and Westwood One. Guy works 300 nights a year. Guy works 300 nights a year, and he's stuck in his house for 3 months. He was a perfect guy, and he had all the stories.
That's awesome. That's a pro wrestling schedule, 300 nights a year. But that's,
Donald Trump has said he's not throwing out the first pitch at Yankee Stadium.
Oh, that's something else. Yeah, we wanted to get to.
We'll make it later in the season.
We didn't get a chance to talk about, for sure.
That's very interesting. So you've broken this, and if you're listening to this in the future, let us know how the flying cars are. Yeah, that's what we need.
Exactly. Yeah, because that was that was something that we got so I don't want to say sidetracked, but we obviously had so much to talk about.
Sure.
But yeah, that was definitely a thing that we would touch upon.
What was something that we didn't do?
Yeah.
What was something that you guys wanted to talk about that we didn't because of some dumb story I told?
Your story. First off, your stories are fantastic. Honestly, I think the audience. I may be speaking for the audience here. We could probably listen to your stories all day because you've got some amazing stories. And you can listen to all those stories on Sports with Friends or Hall of Justice on iTunes.
Right.
Or our upcoming documentary, The First Dance, 10 episodes with you, Seth, and us.
Yeah.
It's coming out soon on ESPN.
But yeah, I mean, it's I mean, I guess if we wanted to do one more quick topic, just because you did mention that, what are your thoughts? There was a big hubbubaloo about Trump wanting to throw out a first pitch at Yankee Stadium, supposedly August 15th against the Red Sox. Mariano Rivera, who's at the White House this week, wanted supposedly was an inroad to that. But obviously, people are saying this is kind of hypocritical because obviously opening weekend, there was a lot of the stuff for Black Lives Matter. There was this huge ceremony with the Nationals and the Yankees, everybody holding a black banner and kneeling before the national anthem. And of course, you know, this is a fact. Trump has been very anti Black Lives Matter. So it feels like it takes away from everything they were saying just over this weekend. What were your thoughts on this whole scenario, this whole situation? How tone deaf is the Yankee front office? What are your thoughts?
I don't know if it's tone deaf. It's arrogant, and it is what they want to do, and they don't care about the fans and all the fans who are like, "Oh, my precious Yankees, how could they do it?" There's a reason why the rest of the league hates you, and it's that arrogance. It's that arrogance because they'll do whatever the hell they want all the time, and I get it. I remember when I was at MLB and they launched MLB Advanced Media, and 29 teams helped us out a ton, and one was hard, and they were the Yankees. And I grew up a Yankee fan. Don Mattingly, Dave Winfield, those were my guys. But the 2000s group was the most arrogant sons of bitches I'd ever seen in my life. And when they traded Raul Mondesi for a bag of balls, you saw that they were literally the most arrogant organization in sports, and they can do whatever they want. Just like the learners, the people that own the Nationals, can do whatever they want. And they didn't let Trump in the building during the World Series. That was their choice. And Kurt Suzuki did his choice because that scumbag decided to make the Nationals being honored a political statement and brought that Fakakta hat, the Make America Great Again hat, to the ceremony, and Trump loved it. So everybody can do whatever they want. And if we're going to stick to your guns and say that politics, you know, you want to keep politics out of baseball, you've never kept politics out of baseball.
And
politics has been in the midst of baseball the whole time, and the Yankees don't give a crap what you think.
Well, and in sports in general,
moderator, Ray, your response.
Well, I mean, no, in sports in general, I mean, look, it's you know, sports has always been a platform for people to make political statements or to make statements about the world or whatever. And I mean, it's you know, perfectly, it's definitely their choice. I find it to be Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, what they do as an organization and what the players do on the field, what Aaron Boone does or whatever these guys do and say, I guess everybody has their own opinion. I just feel it is a bit hypocritical.
But I just don't like when fans have the unconditional love. Unconditional love. Like, for example, unconditional love. If I told you everything I know about Jeff Wilpon and I hear of these Met fans that'll be like, but I love my Metsies, and I just want to smack them. Every team has that, and every team understands that. And that, you know what that is, and then I'll open up a can of worms. That's the Penn State fan. The Penn State fan has to literally look themselves in the mirror and say, I'm embarrassed for my school, and not go blue or whatever no, that's not go blue, go
we
Lions
are.
or whatever
we
the
are.
hell they are.
Yeah.
It's we are. That's what
we
say.
are. We are. That's what Penn.
Yeah.
See, a good joke got ruined. Coming down.
No,
three, two,
look,
one.
it's a fair point.
We are.
I mean, I love, I'm not doing this because you're on the episode, but it's like Devils fans for me too, because I remember when I happened to live in New Jersey, the 10-year period, they were the best team ever, which was devastating to me many years. I used to tell them, one day Brodeur is going to retire and you're not going to be good anymore. And they would come back at me. I said, because he's the best goalie in the history of the NHL. Right. And they'd keep coming at me. And I said, I just said he's the best goalie in the history of the NHL, and you're still bitching. You don't have to come back to that. You win. You know what I mean? But I know what you're saying about the unconditional fan. And yeah, I mean,
Brodeur came on the podcast. I'll end it with this. Brodeur came on Sports with Friends, and I asked him one question for the fans, and I said, who's the Devils' second biggest rival? I said, well, we all know the Rangers are their first rival. Who's the second biggest rival? And he said unequivocally the Flyers.
Good.
And I always say the Islanders, you're not good enough to be our second rival.
I'm pretty sure the Islanders aren't even the Rangers' second rival at this point.
No, it's been so long since
my favorite Nassau Coliseum joke was when they had asbestos. And when they decided they wanted to go back to the building, I said, did you fumigate the place?
Seth, now I have to tell you, I'm looking at the clock and I'll keep us on time, but I got to tell you this story. So like I said, I worked with every team in the Old Atlantic, okay? And I'm working with the Islanders. This is like right when I was getting out of college, I was kind of interning in the coaches' rooms. I'm in the room with the coaches and I'm watching everything. And I get there early for a game one time. I'm driving from New Jersey to Nassau, which is not a fun trip to take at all, okay? So I get there. And like the game's delayed 20 minutes. I'm like, what do you mean it's delayed? How do you delay an NHL game? And they go, okay, listen, the sewage line runs over the locker room and it broke. And the Islanders locker room is full of shit. They said it just like that. And again, I'm sorry to curse on here. We don't usually do that. And I'm like, you mean that literally they got shit on in their own building? Right? And they did. And they had to delay the game, like get new jerseys. But I'm thinking, what kind of a building has the sewage line run through the locker room, which was not a nice locker room, by the way. I've seen lots of NHL locker rooms.
I've been there.
Yeah, it's like one of those trucks, right? That's what it looks like. It's like an elongated 16-wheeler. I'm very, very happy that they're going to Belmont because the organization does deserve more respect.
I hope for good things. I want to beat them too. You remind me of the story of Oakland when they had problems with their plumbing. And I called the Oakland Coliseum a cesspool. And I said, and they're like, that's a little harsh. And I said, no, there's literal plumbing issues in the place. And then I said, why are the concourses always wet? Why is the cement in the concourse always wet? That's not water. It's not water. And I always used to call the Oakland Coliseum a cesspool, and it was an apropos line.
Yeah, well, and keeping in mind that Philadelphia made Veterans Stadium the shape of a toilet. Go figure. But we got new stadiums now, so we win.
My favorite Veterans Stadium story is the late, great Darrell Hamilton, my best friend. He was playing for the Giants, and they missed the bus. And he and a guy were on the team, and they went to the vet. They took a cab. They got there, and the gate that they had let him on, they're like, hey, man, we're on the Giants. We're late. Can you let us in? And he said, bullshit, we don't believe you. And he wouldn't let them in.
Yeah. I once had someone describe that arena. They said, well, tell us about the vet. They said, it's septic. That's how they described the vet.
It was gross, but it was fun.
It was fun. Anyway, listen, if you're still listening to us, thank you all for dragging along this episode. This is a great story. Seth, I want to tell you again, I really appreciate you coming on. I know this is the first time we're ever meeting, and I know Ray's always been a big fan. Yeah, it goes both ways. And I'll let Ray close it out, but I wanted to say that. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, great. Thanks for having me.
Yes, Seth, thank you again so much. You can hear Seth, his podcast on iTunes, again, Sports with Friends and Hall of Justice. And, of course, if you watch anything surrounding baseball, you'll see him pop up at some point. He is a great baseball mind. No, seriously. And we are really thrilled to have had you come on the show today. We know you got a really busy schedule. Yeah, no, really appreciate it, dude. Good seeing you. Good talking with you. This has been the latest Geeks Who Like Sports Leaderboard interview. Thank you for listening, everyone. We will see you and talk to you next time.